Okay. Hi, my name is Trejon COF. I'm currently studying computer engineering at Cal Poly Pomona, and here I'm here to talk to you guys about standardized testing. My major claim I'm making today is the fact that that the use of standardized tests are having a negative effect in America's education system. As a test, when I call standardized, goes from benchmarks or state tests or SAT or tests that basically generalize your level of where you are at the moment. So a personal example of me growing up, I actually got, I don't know how to explain it. I had learning disabilities and testing disabilities, and I had very bad testing anxiety based on disabilities, felt me crying at all times, and I was actually forced in a classroom for 3 years on my own because of the disability I had. And me having this, I had high test scores, but yet they placed me in classes that were lower or remedial because they believed that I was just lower than all the other students. Because of that score that was on my test, I may seem higher, but to them, it showed it a little bit lower. And going on, basically my first major claim I will make, or my first secondary claim is the fact that standardized tests are an unreliable measure of student performance. And this is pretty much true because of the fact that there are lots of students that come from all the other different countries and different places that come here that are very intelligent, very smart, but yet to our level they may seem lower, seem down based on the score that they get on a test because they don't know how to take the test that we provide for them. It's not the same test they would probably took in their country or the same type of language, and they're learning based on our standards and our levels here. And they may not seem efficient, they might be proficient or advanced, but in all honesty, they're smart just like us. But we don't see it that way because of scoring the test. And a subclaim to that would be like the fact of high-stake tests may result in negative change in health. Because students basically would kill themselves, stay up all night, do this and do that just to make it by on that test. Like for the SAT, and study all night and do whatever it takes, and then take the test, and then basically harming their body just for them to get by based on the standards that we hold here in the U.S. And another subclaim to that would be basically students take test scores may vary on retaking the test, meaning that you can do horrible on a test one time, do good on it, and you have the same amount of knowledge in your brain. And what sense does that make? But the fact that you take the same test 3 times, get 3 completely different scores, but yet it's still the same knowledge. Going on to my next claim, secondary claim would be basically we spend a lot of time in teachers spend a lot of time teaching and preparing these students for this test instead of actually getting us geared for the real life. We don't really, a lot of times in classrooms, our teachers are showing us how to take a test, how to guess, how to do this and how to do that, instead of actually showing us what we need to be efficient adults in the future. Those are basically things that we learn by our teachers, or now it is English, science, and math, instead of things that we're actually interested in, from art, to music, to theater, to physical education, anything and everything that we actually find that we actually use in everyday life. Because we need to be able to actually have a healthy diet to live on longer, but yet we don't learn those things in college. Only in from elementary going up to higher grades. And a subclaim to that basically excessive teaching, basically teaching our children basically on the fact that test taking is good. And when we basically, how do I explain it? When it comes down to it, we basically are rewarded based on how good we take tests instead of the fact that we're not preparing ourselves for the real life. We aren't preparing and getting ready for what's going to come next after we get out of high school, or after we go up to high school, and we're not ready for that. Basically, we're only rewarded based on you have a good grade in this test, you're a good student. But that's not true. You can get a good grade on a student, a good grade on a test, but don't have as much knowledge as the person next to you. And going on, this definitely includes students to lose lack in school. Reason why is Columbia University talks about how standardized tests have been found to reduce group activities among students because of the students spend a lot of time in preparing for standardized tests and therefore skipping daily routines as in playing or exercising. It doesn't mean that students will literally stay up all night, stay all day in a room by themselves studying instead of having fun, having memories, and actually learning everyday things that we need to like basically have a normal life, and actually have fun, and actually believe that we're normal, like the other people that we're around. And just for my next secondary claim, basically the fact that this is a immeasurable. This is a not accurate way of like showing the way that teachers perform, because of the fact that we reward them or punish them on how these students react in class, but by these tests. Because these tests, basically, if we do good on this test, even though we don't know nothing from the test, we fail in life. And to conclude, as a recap, basically what we talked about today is the fact that standardized tests are going to run the world in some type of way, even though we don't know that knowledge is really on the test. In other words, I'm saying that the use of benchmark tests, SAT or ACT tests, standardized tests, are having a negative influence in America's educational system. Thank you.
Okay, Trey, let's start with some of the things that are pretty good in the presentation. Your proposition's very clearly identified, so that's solid. You used your time appropriately, and you had a good exit line, which comes back to having that proposition set up early, so that helps you a good deal. Also, you do a nice job speaking to the audience. You look at us for the most part. You come across sincerely. When you use it and talk about your personal experience, I think that adds a little bit to your credibility. So those are the things that are working well. Couple of things, though, that are problematic. There is no structure to this speech. You have claims that you just kind of randomly throw out. There's no preview of what the structure is going to be. I can't tell how many supporting points you had. It just said, and then the next claim that I have, it's like bullet points, you know, and that's not really the way to structure a speech. You need to have declarative sentences, and sometimes they're declarative sentences, sometimes it's just another piece of information, and that's, I think, problematic. It's not building toward a conclusion, it's just presenting data, and that's not what you need to do in order to advance your argument. The evidence is the other thing that's problematic. I heard one source citation in the presentation, and that's it, and that's really not sufficient to be convincing. Now, your personal story, I think, is helpful, but we have no way of verifying that. There's not any statistical data on this. There are a lot of assertions about what happens in the classroom, how students feel about things, what the effect is going to be. The one piece of information that got cited was the Columbia University research that suggests that they spend different times on different activities because they're working on the tests. And I thought, okay, so there's a nice piece of testimony. However, it's interesting that that piece of testimony isn't connected to the claim that you were presenting earlier. So it's like in a completely separate section, even though it supports an issue that you had talked about earlier. And that's why if you had a clear organizational structure, it would be easier to tell where the evidence should be plugged in. I assume that you probably did a lot of research, but none of it got cited in the presentation, so that's a problem. All right.